Descartes. So today we're going to be looking at one of the great classic texts in philosophy of mind, in philosophy generally, really where one of the texts where a lot of the modern subject begins. Have you looked at it? Did you find it? And if you did you find it difficult or easy? Put your hand up if you found it difficult. Easy? Okay. It's actually relatively straightforward, but you have to read it a few times before you realize that it's straightforward. So let me encourage you to have faith in yourself, that you can crack it, and have faith in it, that it is actually relatively straightforward. So on Friday, we'll look at a critique of Descartes from Gilbert Ryle, Descartes' Myth. And I thought I should say a word about the essays and assignments. We'll have 2 essays, 2 3 to 5 page essays, and 1 exam. Originally, the deadline for the first essay was Monday, October the 1st. But after discussing with the GSIs, that somehow seems a bit soon. So we have shifted that to October the 6th, which may also seem a bit soon, but it's not quite as soon. You see what I mean? The second essay will be due Monday, October the 10th, and there's a final exam on December the 18th. And we'll try and give out the topics for the first essay on Friday, so the day after tomorrow. Okay, any questions about that? Yes? They will be online as well, yes. And I think I will try to email them to all of you anyhow, but I'll also give out a hard copy on Friday, just to ram the point home. Okay. Anything else on that? Okay. Okay, well, Descartes has 3 arguments to say the mind can't be physical. We've already been looking at a lot of arguments to say the mind can't be physical. Descartes has 3 arguments to say they can't be physical. All of them are important. The first one says, your knowledge of your own existence is more certain than your knowledge of the existence of any material thing could be. So there's all that physical stuff around you. But look, it could all be a dream. Yeah? None of this might be happening. You can doubt whether any of this is happening. That makes perfect sense. But your own existence, you can't doubt that. Even if it's only a dream, you who are dreaming still exist. So any material thing you could doubt the existence of. But the self, your own self, how could you doubt the existence of that? Therefore, the self can't be a material thing. You can imagine yourself without a body. You can conceive of yourself without a body. But if you can conceive 2 things distinctly, then how could they be the same? Or the last one, the most difficult one to get, that we'll come on to in a bit, matter is divisible. Take any particle of matter, you can divide it. It makes sense to talk about dividing it. But the self has a kind of unity that can't be explained as the unity of a material thing. So what Descartes seems to be arguing for here is that there's physical stuff, but the mind can't be physical stuff because of these arguments. Therefore, there must be another kind of stuff. To give it a name, you might call it ectoplasm, whatever the soul is made of, right? And people very often find this kind of argument for saying there's 2 kinds of stuff just compelling. People live their whole lives believing this kind of argument. But there is a really basic problem with it. In a way, Descartes' solution is not radical enough. I mean, there really could be ectoplasm. I mean, you know what I mean by ectoplasm, kind of wispy, silvery stuff, right? It kind of comes out your mouth. No? So you've all seen Harry Potter, right? You know the stuff. And you get your wand. And there really could be such a stuff as ectoplasm. I mean, physicists, after all, talk about dark energy. They say maybe there's dark matter. Maybe there is matter or stuff that's not made of atoms. That wouldn't be the regular physical stuff. There'd be some other kind of stuff. That really is a possibility. If there were a possibility, if it happened, I mean, if you could demonstrate the existence of such stuff, then you get a Nobel Prize, no questions asked, right? That would be just another fundamental breakthrough in understanding the universe. But Descartes' arguments for showing that the mind can't be made of physical stuff also show that the mind can't be made of ectoplasm. Because suppose there is ectoplasm, well, it will still be true that your knowledge of your own existence is more certain than your knowledge of the existence of any ectoplasmic thing. Yeah? I mean, that silvery stuff might just be an illusion. That might have been just a dream. So any kind of stuff, your knowledge of its existence is less certain than your knowledge of your own existence. You could conceive of yourself existing without ectoplasm. You can say, well, I can imagine being in an entirely ectoplasm-free world. Or you could argue, look, ectoplasm, whatever it is going to be divisible. You can measure it, cut it into bits. The mind's not divisible in that way. So the mind can't be made of ectoplasm either. I think Descartes didn't see quite how radical the conclusion was that his arguments point to. It's not that there are two kinds of stuff, physical stuff plus something else. It's that it's very hard to see that how the mind can be made of any kind of stuff at all. The problem is really much more radical than he acknowledged. So the implication of that is we should just forget about the ectoplasm. For present purposes, we can just assume that we're living in a physical world. There is no other kind of stuff. The great puzzle is to see how the mind fits into that world. So let's just work through Descartes' arguments. Since you're having trouble with the initial initial breaking of the text, let's just make sure that we get how the arguments go. Descartes says, the fact I can clearly and distinctly understand one thing apart from another is enough to make me certain that the two things are distinct, since they are capable of being separated. I mean, you get this bag, and you get this bag. I can conceive of this bag, I can conceive of that bag. I can conceive of them quite independently of one another. Therefore, they are different things. That kind of makes sense, right? If you can wrap your mind around the thing around, if you can wrap your mind around this thing, wrap your mind about wrap your mind around that thing, and hold them apart in your mind, then they must be different things. If you think about something like boiling, water boiling, and motion of molecules, then you can't really imagine, if you really understand the full situation, you can't imagine molecules moving so fast that the bonds between them are broken and hold that apart from boiling. Once you fully grasp the situation, once you fully grasp the physics of water, you see that boiling and the separation of molecular bonds, that's just the same thing. They've got to be the same thing. So if the mind really was just the brain, it would be like that. You wouldn't be able to conceive of the brain and the mind differently. But of course we can. It's easy. I mean, imagine, for example, I trust I'm not the only one that does this. Imagine your own funeral. Imagine hundreds of people thronging the streets. Are they sorry? Yes, they're all sorry. Right? I think that. You know, there are all my colleagues. There is my family. Are they all sorry? Do they wish they'd treated me better? They certainly do. Where is my body? My body is in the casket. Am I in the casket? in this cheerful scenario. No, I am not in the casket. I am watching it from somewhere else. Do I have a body at all? No. You can conceive of yourself apart from body. Right? Am I the only one that has this thought? No? Thank you. We don't have to go into details. But it's a very familiar thing to conceive of yourself apart from body, to conceive of yourself as something distinct from your body. Another way to put it is the way Descartes puts it is, it could be that the material world is entirely an illusion. You can conceive of that. When Descartes says, maybe it is but a waking dream, then you might agree or disagree as to whether that is what's going on. But it makes sense. You can imagine it, that the whole world is just an illusion that was put on for you. That is not a contradiction to say that. You can conceive of it, but you would still exist. You and your mental states would still exist. Or here's another way Descartes gets at the point, putting it round the other way. I might consider the body of a man, a human, as a kind of machine equipped and made up of bones, nerves, muscles, veins, blood, and skin, in such a way that even if there were no mind in it, it would still perform all the same movements as it does in those cases where movement is not under control of the will or consequently of the mind. So you could get something that was physically just like you, but did not have consciousness attached. That seems to make sense, right? I mean, don't look now, but the person beside you, don't look, may be exactly like that, right? Couldn't that be? They have all the physiology of a human. They have all that biology, but no consciousness attached. You can imagine that. I mean, there are whole movies built around that premise. Yeah? And if a successful movie does it, then it must make sense, right? You can conceive of that. I mean, that just is the idea of a zombie. Something that is like a human physiologically, but just doesn't have the mental bit. So the general point here is you can conceive of mind and body coming apart. You can conceive of them as distinctly from one another. So it can't be like water, or like boiling water and molecular bonds coming apart. You can't conceive of these distinctly. In the case of mind and body, it seems all too possible to conceive of them distinctly. Therefore, they must be different things. That's his first argument. I mean, that's clearly a powerful argument. It's something that drives, I think, lots of people's imagination. Plain as day. Okay, let's look at the second argument, this divisibility argument. The body is, by its very nature, always divisible, whereas the mind is utterly indivisible. Okay, so what's he talking about? When I consider the mind, that is to say myself, inasmuch as I am a thinking thing, I cannot distinguish in myself